The hero next door. She thought the break-in was random until she found the folder of photos, and the email that proved the hero next door wrote the whole nightmare. Marisol Vega moved into the bungalow because it was supposed to be quiet. After the breakup, after the messy apartment she couldn't afford to keep, after the friends who tried to help but couldn't stop her from waking up at night with her heart already sprinting, Marisol wanted stillness. She wanted a street where the loudest thing was a sprinkler ticking at dawn, where the neighbors kept to themselves, where she could learn the shape of peace again. The house had a small porch light that cast a warm oval onto the steps, and a narrow driveway that smelled faintly of wet concrete. The neighborhood was tidy in the way that felt rehearsed. Trimmed hedges, shuttered windows, dog walkers who smiled without stopping. Her first night there, as she unloaded boxes from her car, someone called out from the house next door. "New face," the voice said, friendly and old. "You need a hand." Marisol turned and saw him standing at the edge of his driveway like he'd been waiting. He was an elderly Asian man, thin but straight-backed, wearing a faded flannel shirt tucked into jeans that had seen 1,000 repairs. His hair was silver and cut neat. He held a mug of something steaming with both hands, as if it were cold even in summer. "I'm okay," Marisol said, polite, forcing the corners of her mouth upward. He lifted the mug in a small salute. "Hiro Nakamura, next door." "Marisol," she replied. "Marisol Vega." "Welcome," he said, and then, after a half-beat, "You picked a good street. Safe." There was something about the word safe that made Marisol's skin tighten, like her body didn't quite trust it. Hiro smiled anyway, soft, grandfatherly, and stepped back as if he'd completed a duty. Over the next few days, he became a constant. He waved when she checked her mail. He called hello when she dragged trash to the curb. He offered tomatoes from a garden box he kept beside his porch, the fruit split with ripeness and smelling like summer dirt. When Marisol came home late from her job, remote customer support during the day, extra shifts for a medical billing company in the evenings, she'd see him in his window, a lamp glowing behind lace curtains, his silhouette framed as if the house itself had an eye. It wasn't threatening, not exactly, but it was consistent. Too consistent. Sometimes she felt like the street knew her schedule better than she did, and then the break-in happened. It was a Tuesday, the kind where the sky had been bruised all day and the air felt too heavy to breathe. Rain started around midnight, gentle at first, then angrier, slapping the windows like someone trying to get her attention. Marisol slept with her phone on the nightstand and a lamp plugged in close enough to reach without standing. She'd trained herself into these habits like armor. At 2 a.m., the sound of shattering glass yanked her up so violently she tasted bile. For a moment, she didn't move. The silence afterward was thick, listening. Then came footsteps downstairs, heavy, deliberate, crunching over glass as if whoever it was didn't care how loud they were. A drawer yanked open. Another, the low thud of cabinets being kicked. Marisol's body went cold and hot at the same time. She grabbed her phone, stumbled into her walk-in closet and pulled the door shut. Her hands shook so hard she could barely keep her grip. She dropped to her knees and shoved herself under hanging clothes, burying her face into a stack of sweaters that still smelled like moving boxes. The footsteps started up the stairs. 1, 2, 3. Each step landed like a decision. Marisol clamped a hand over her mouth to keep from making noise, but her breathing turned into a frantic whisper anyway. Tears came instantly, hot and humiliating. The bedroom door creaked open. She could hear the intruder's breathing now, close, wet, heavy, like they'd been running to get there. The closet door was only a few feet away. She imagined fingers on the handle, a blade, a gun, the casual way the world could end. The knob turned. Slowly, it stopped, as if whoever it was listening too. And then, a crash from downstairs loud enough to vibrate the floorboards. A booming voice that wasn't hers, wasn't the intruder's. "Hey!" the voice shouted. "Get out of there! I've got a gun!" A scramble. Sudden, panicked movement. Footsteps running back down the stairs. The slam of the back door so hard it shook the walls. Then silence. Marisol stayed frozen, waiting for the trick. The return, the laugh, the second man. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure it could be heard outside her skull. A gentle knock came at the bedroom door. "Ms. Vega?" An older voice called, soft now, familiar. "Marisol? It's Hero, from next door. Are you all right?" They ran. Marisol didn't answer at first. Her throat wouldn't work. The closet door felt like the only thing keeping the world from spilling in. Another knock, quieter, patient. "I heard the glass. I saw a light moving. I came over." Marisol forced herself up, opened the closet door, and stepped out like she was walking into a dream. Hero stood in the hallway in a bathrobe and slippers, holding a heavy metal wrench in one hand like it was an extension of his arm. His face was pale with concern, eyebrows lifted, mouth drawn in a line that made him look older than he had before. "You're safe," he said immediately. "I didn't see how many, but they're gone." Marisol's knees buckled with relief, and she hated herself for it. Hero guided her to the bed, sat her down like she was made of fragile glass. He kept talking calmly like a radio tuned to steady, practical frequencies. He'd been awake, he said. Couldn't sleep. Insomnia. He'd seen the flashlight beam sweeping through her kitchen window like a slow lighthouse. He'd come over without thinking. "I'm sorry," Marisol whispered. I didn't even—" "Don't apologize," Hero said, and patted her shoulder once, light but firm. "The world is strange. People are strange. We do what we can." When the police arrived, Hero was there. He spoke for her when her voice broke. He poured her tea, insisted she drink it, even though her hands shook too badly to hold the mug steady. He stood near the front door like a quiet guard. The officers were polite but tired. They took notes, looked at the broken back window, shined a flashlight through her kitchen, asked if she had valuables or enemies, or an ex who might have wanted to scare her. Marisol kept staring at Hero while they spoke, because his presence was the only thing in the room that felt anchored. After the police left, she tried to be brave. She tried to laugh at herself. She tried to pretend she'd be okay. Hero stayed until dawn. When he finally left, he said, "I'm right next door. You hear anything, you call out. You understand?" Marisol nodded. She slept for 2 hours in the pale light of morning, exhausted in a way that felt cellular. After that night, Hero became indispensable. He installed new deadbolts on her doors, just in case, refusing payment like it would offend him. He replaced the broken window with temporary plywood that same day, then arranged for a proper replacement before the week ended. He walked her to her car in the mornings. He checked in every evening, not with long conversations at first, just a knock, a gentle voice. "Marisol, you all right tonight?" At first it soothed her. It proved someone was there. She told her friends, on the rare occasions she answered their calls, that she had a guardian angel next door. "I don't know what I would have done without him," she said, and meant it. "He saved me." And because she believed that, she let him closer. When she got home from grocery runs, he helped carry bags without asking. When she was sick, he left soup on the porch. When her phone died one afternoon and she mentioned it offhand, he showed up the next day with an extra charger. He always seemed to know what she needed. He always seemed to know what she lacked. Marisol didn't notice how her relief had slowly turned into dependency until it was already stitched into her routine. The street was quiet. Hero was constant. And the house, her house, began to feel safe only because he existed beside it. A month later, Hero was rushed to the hospital for a gallbladder issue, he said with a dismissive wave, as if organs were minor inconveniences. An overnight observation, nothing more. Before the ambulance took him, he pressed a spare key into Marisol's palm. "Could you water my plants?" he asked. "Just once. They're picky." Marisol hesitated, then smiled. "Of course." "Thank you," Hero said, and his eyes stayed on her face a beat too long, like he was memorizing gratitude. The next evening, Marisol let herself into Hero's house. It smelled like old wood and machine oil and something faintly sweet, like tea left too long in a cup. The rooms were cluttered but tidy, stacked newspapers, framed photos of landscapes, a workbench in the corner with tools laid out like surgical instruments. His living room felt cozy in the way older homes do, the kind of cozy that implies years of being lived in. Marisol found the plants easily, ferns and pothos clustered around his study desk, their leaves angled toward the light like listening ears. She filled a watering can at the kitchen sink and moved through the house quietly, as if noise would break something. The study door was already open. Hero's laptop sat on the desk, lit up, screen glowing. Marisol tried not to look. It felt rude, invasive. But the screen was angled toward the doorway, and a folder was open. Not a document. Photos. Her breath caught. Marisol stepped closer, heartbeat turning fast and sour. The images on the screen were unmistakable. There she was, standing at her trash bins. There she was, walking to her car with her hair still damp from a shower. There she was, in her kitchen, seen through the window at night, face lit by the refrigerator's pale glow. Dozens of photos, different angles, different days. Some were distant, taken from across the street. Others were close enough that she could see the tension in her own jaw, the little habits she didn't know she had. Touching her necklace, tucking hair behind her ear, glancing over her shoulder as if she sensed a presence. The dates went back to her first day in the neighborhood. Marisol's stomach lurched. Her hands moved without permission, clicking, scrolling, as if her body believed that if she understood it, she could undo it. On the desktop, a file sat with a neat label. Receipts. Marisol stared at it, throat tightening. Don't. She clicked it anyway. An email thread opened. The timestamps punched through her like needles. 2 days before the break-in. The subject line was blunt. Tuesday night. The sender name made her blood turn to ice. Hiro Nakamura. The recipient, Razor. The message was short, written like a set of instructions, clean and calm. Hiro. $500. Tuesday night, 2 a.m., back window. Make it loud. Go upstairs. Rattle the closet knob, then wait for my shout. Do not touch her. This is just for show. The reply came minutes later. Razor. Easy. She'll be shook. You'll be the hero. Pay half up front? Hero. Half now, half after. Marisol's vision blurred. The terror of that night, the helplessness, the tears, the certainty that she might die in her own closet hadn't been random. It had been staged. It had been directed. A performance designed to carve a hollow inside her and then fill it with Hiro. Marisol backed away from the desk too quickly and bumped the chair, the sound sharp in the quiet house. She froze, listening, expecting the walls to accuse her. Her phone felt slick in her hand. She didn't remember taking it out. She didn't remember unlocking it. A car engine growled outside. Headlights swept across the front room like a searchlight. Marisol's blood went cold again, colder than before, because she knew that rhythm now, knew the cadence of a car pulling in next door. She moved to the window in slow pieces, like a person trying not to disturb a sleeping animal. A taxi had stopped at the curb. The door opened. Hiro stepped out. He looked smaller in the streetlight, hunched slightly, as if the hospital had stolen some of his strength. But his movements were precise, practiced. He paid the driver. He turned toward the house. Then he looked up, directly toward the study window. Marisol's breath stopped. For a second, his face held that warm, grandfatherly softness she'd trusted. And then, as his eyes focused, that softness vanished. Like a mask slipping off, Hiro's expression became flat, empty of kindness, empty of surprise, replaced by something intent and quietly furious, as if he was watching a plan fall apart. He didn't rush. He didn't shout. He simply stared at the lit study window for a long moment. Then he smiled. Not the friendly smile. A smaller one. A private one. As if he'd found the part of the game he enjoyed most. Marisol backed away from the window, heart pounding so hard it hurt, the laptop screen still glowing behind her like an open wound. The front door handle turned. Once. Twice. A key slid into the lock. And in that moment, Marisol understood the worst part. Hiro hadn't given her the spare key because he trusted her. He'd given it to her because he'd wanted her to come inside. he'd wanted her to see, because now she belonged to the story he was writing, and he was home to finish it. If you want more quiet, slow-burn horror that creeps under your skin without loud jump scares, subscribe to Bedtime Threads AI and let the next story play while you drift off. Just remember, sometimes the safest voice in the dark is the one you should fear most.